for coming again. Thank you for joining again. And welcome to Elevate with Adetunji Aribasoye. So we're going to conclude on the conversation we started at the last edition, which is breaking the barrier of assumption, or breaking the assumption barrier in our marriages, in our homes. And I'm sure you got something. And let me quickly recap that. Number one, I mentioned that we should, as individuals and couples, families, prioritize open communication. There's a need to seek unity and agreement in our conversation. And of course, I mentioned that there's a need for us to ask rather than assuming. And today we're going to be concluding on this particular conversation so that we can move to other things. We still have other conversations as we journey together on this channel. So number 3, today, to us as husbands and wives, couples, is to listen actively. You know, we have different types or different ways we listen, and while we appear not to listen attentively to our spouses, is also still borders on assumption, assuming that the other person understand, the other person should know what I wanted to say. As a matter of fact, we assume that person should also understand that we are busy and I have to be on my way, so we just have to talk and go. No. So that's what, there's the need for us to listen attentively. And this thought, it borders on the fact that we need to pay attention to what our spouse is saying without interrupting them. Listening attentively is listening not for judgment, not to judge, not to pass any comments. Listen first. Active listening means that you are not interrupting the other person. Yeah, it's a big deal for us as men to really listen actively. We seem to be taking point almost immediately from what the other person is saying. And a lot of women too are also found in this habit of interrupting. And a lot of the time when the other person is talking, we become defensive. You know, we just want to quickly defend ourselves and shut the other person down. And when we do this, we are not solving the problem. We still come back again to the same issue. So there's a need for us to pay attention and reflect back what your spouse is saying so that you can understand them correctly. There's a need for us to understand. And as individuals, husbands, wives, there's a need for us to be intentional in reflecting back on what the other person is saying so that you can respond correctly without judging, without passing the bulk of the blame to that person, and without being confrontational. Because most times when the other person is talking, you can become confrontational if you are not also reflecting on what they are saying. Most times there's need for us to also understand our spouse, knowing how they communicate. Because most times they mean B while you assume that they mean A, and we can become defensive and of course judgmental. So we have to do that. And of course we have to avoid listening with intent to respond. Like I mentioned earlier, we have to focus on understanding what message your spouse is trying to pass across per time. Yeah, we had this same conversation also, and this same issue early in my marriage, when most time I misunderstand my wife, and many times too she misunderstood me. But it took us some time before we could now come to a point where we realized that, this is how this person communicates, and this is how they communicate their thoughts per time, on finance, on roles, on responsibilities, on religion, on expectation. Because most time my wife approached me many times on different messages out there, from some of our fathers and some of our friends, pastors online, and we sit down to extray. And like the Berean Christians, we also have to still go back to study to be on the same page on certain religion and beliefs. So the number 4 now is to establish what I call the culture of honesty. I remember when I met my wife, when we were still courting, And up until recently, when my children, they are growing by the grace of God, one thing that my wife first communicated to them that I am aware of was, your daddy dislikes or does not like lying around him, or liars or lying. So, because when I met my wife too, back then, we had the same conversation to say, be honest, be open, do not lie. On any issue, do not lie. I won't judge you. Just tell me as it is, either from the past or now or in the future. Just say it the way it is so that we can, because of course I personally do not, I can't, I don't want to get to a point where I begin to live with someone that I cannot trust. And she too had the same issue too. So we agreed that we are going to be open to each other and also we have to be transparent about our feelings. So be transparent about your feelings to your spouse. Be transparent about your struggles, and of course about your expectations. That's one thing that we call transfer aggression. If you're not careful, if you don't communicate your struggles with your spouse, your struggle to please her and provide for the house, your struggle with your boss at work, even with your pastor and friends and all of that, if you don't communicate all of this, you can bottle them up and begin to dump them on your spouse. So I remember the day I decided to, early in my marriage, maybe after 2 years of my marriage, and it became more like an habit. The moment I get to my front door, I'll stand there for a few seconds and try to take a very deep breath, and more like I'm acting, drop whatever issue I'm bringing from the office and the street, and even most time driving home could be crazy. I'll drop everything at the door to enter the house so that I can meet my wife with a loving heart, and she could embrace me, and we could and have a very beautiful evening together. So I started doing that and became an habit that today I don't transfer aggression or pressure or any of this to her. We discuss. So, and of course, if something bothers you as a husband or wife, if anything bothers you at all, address it rather than assuming that your spouse should just know. My boss did this, she should know. My salary was slashed, she should know. I'm sick, she should know. No, we need to address it together. Then avoid bottling up your emotions. Very, very important. I mentioned earlier what is called transferred aggression. Be careful that you don't transfer or you don't bottle up your emotions that now aggravate to transferring the pressure that comes with that. So, because if you bottle up your emotions, it can also lead to resentment. So we do show love and show grace to your spouse. Colossians 3:13 says something very profound. It said, bearing with one another and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, you also must do the same. So, forgiveness and patience reduce conflicts at home. It prevents assumptions from causing resentment. And for before I close today, let me probably do one or two more. Number 5 will be to say avoid mind reading and expecting perfection. No one is a mind reader per se. We have to communicate clearly. Give grace to your spouse instead of assuming that they should just know what to do. Extend that grace to them to communicate and for you to also understand them, and understand that both of you are learning. Husband and wife, we are all learning and we are growing in the marriage journey together. And also be winning. I'm talking to both the husband and the wife now that are struggling with assumption barriers and constant argument at home. Be willing to learn and adjust. We are all learners. Nobody knows it all. I could be a PhD holder and my wife is a degree holder. She could be a PhD holder. That does not even add to anything serious at home. this is beyond our academic qualifications, you know. So there's a need for us to be willing as individuals to learn and adjust. That is, we have to keep learning about each other. Keep learning, even after many years of marriage, still keep learning. As of today, there are many things that I still learn from my wife, and about my wife also. There seems to be new revelations every time about my wife. Our responses to different issues at home seems to be different almost every year. So I have to keep learning and keep adjusting to these things. Then, so be open to growth and correction, rather than assuming that your way is the only way. And set your expectations together. Set your expectations together, meaning that you should discuss and agree on matters relating to your finances, your house chores, your parenting, your future goals and plans, and your business, investment, ideas, whatever. Do all of this together. And number last for today, practice patience and understanding. Not everyone should, not everything should lead to arguments. Pick your battles wisely. There are battles to just walk away, drink water, just sit down and see nothing happens. And that's something you discuss. And let your words, spoken words, build up your spouse, not tear them down. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep your marriage. I would say thank you very much one more time for being a part of this conversation. You can please drop your questions and your comments in the comment section. And please subscribe and follow us on our different channels. God bless you. We are possible.